Hi, I'm Katie, welcome to Tic Talk. Today our topic is tics and anxiety, and I'm going to be sharing a few strategies to help you deal with it. Okay, so what is anxiety? Anxiety is a feeling of unease, like worry or fear, and it can be mild, but it can be really severe. Everybody worries. It only becomes an issue when this feeling stops us learning or interferes with our everyday life. Why do we worry? Well, our brain is programmed to avoid harm, and once upon a time that meant being able to run away from mammoths and bears, but now our brain uses that strategy to avoid situations we find overwhelming. And when that happens, our brain usually gives us three choices. We can fight, so we shout at people or we make a big fuss. We can fly, we run away or we hide. Or we can freeze, and that's when our brain says, do you know what, I've got absolutely no idea what to do, so I'm just going to say and do nothing. And our brain makes that decision so quickly that often we're not even aware that we're doing it. The trouble with tics is that they often get worse when we're anxious, and people tend to notice our tics at these times. And it's a cycle. Being anxious makes our tics worse. We feel self-conscious about our tics, our anxiety increases, what would you know, our tics get worse. Stress occurs when our demand outweighs our perceived ability to cope. So the solution is to retrain our brain to believe that we can cope. Step number 1, know your triggers. There's a really helpful sheet for this, and it's called a STAR chart. And STAR stands for setting, trigger, action, result. So how does it work? First we look at the setting. Where did it happen? Then we look at our trigger. Why did it happen? Why did I get anxious? What caused this? Then we think about the action. What did we do? Now, we might talk about what sort of tic we had, but we might also talk about how we reacted. What was our response? And then finally, we think about results. That's kind of what happened. How did other people react? Did you miss out? Did you get told off? What happened as a result of you getting anxious? There are lots of really helpful apps to support us to do this, and you might find your own favourite, but my favourite is called the SAM app. It's free, it doesn't have adverts, and it was developed by a university, and I think that's why it's my favourite. It was developed by the University of the West of England, and SAM app helps us to track our anxiety, identify our triggers, and it also offers us some useful strategies, things we can do at the point that we're feeling overwhelmed to help us manage. Top tip number 2, don't underestimate the power of exercise. Exercise has been shown to decrease the rate and severity of tics, and it doesn't really matter what exercise you're doing. It could be yoga, swimming, cycling, running, walking. Just get active. Number 3, I would talk about using perspective. Most worries are caused by something called negative automatic thoughts. They're the things that pop into our heads without us wanting them to. Thoughts like, I can't do this, I always get picked last, nobody likes me. These things are probably not true, but we feel like they are at the time. And the way we can manage that problem is by using something called reframing. Now, reframing techniques help to retrain our brain, and reframing turns those negative thoughts into positives. And over time, with practice, our brain will no longer feel threatened by some of those common situations, and we will feel more in control of what's happening to us. So how does it work? Again, I've attached a version of this for you to have a look at. First, we challenge our brain to think differently. So we think about the thought. I'm going to give you an example. So my example is, people think I'm weird. So that's my thought. People think I'm weird. And then we think about what evidence there is for this. Well, my evidence for this might be somebody's just stared at me. But my evidence against it might be, well, I've got lots of friends, people like me, and most people don't notice when I have a tic. Then I ask myself some other questions. What would my best friend say? Well, she'd probably say, they're only looking, or they only think you're weird because they don't understand what's happening. They don't know about tics. And then I think to myself, what would I say to my friend if they had this thought? Well, I think I'd probably say the people that matter don't care. The people that matter don't think you're weird, so it doesn't really matter. And then at the end, I ask myself, well, if I think about all the evidence together, how much do I believe this thought now? Now, you won't go from 10 to 1 on a first go. This is an activity to retrain your brain over time. We're challenging our brain to think differently. But with practice, we can move our brain from thinking 10 out of 10, definitely true, to being a bit more aware of the perspective of the situation. And then at the end, we do something called reframing. And that's where we take that negative thought, people think I'm weird, and we turn it into a positive. So instead of thinking, people think I'm weird, I might think something like, well, having tics doesn't make me weird, and the people that matter know this. Top tip number 4, remember to ask for help. No one can help you if they don't know how you feel. And I would definitely encourage you to think of somebody you trust, somebody you like, and somebody that understands. And go to that person and ask them to help you to speak to the right people to get the support you need. There is lots more advice on the Tourette's Action website. And don't forget, you can call the helpline or use the email link if you have important questions. Okay, that's all for today. Do have a look at the resources I've shared, and I'll see you soon.